Ige's got to be the fighter of the night, right? I can tell you, this is more of a wrestling term that I'm coming to you with, but every time there would be a tournament, a wrestling event would go on, somebody would win what was called the Outstanding Wrestler Award. And it was a big deal. It was, kind of your peers would vote on it sometimes. Most of the time it was voted on by coaches, but there was a couple of tournaments, Midlands, by example, where your peers actually vote on it. And it's just whoever did the best that day. It's not the best wrestler in the tournament. It's the best wrestler of the tournament. When I look at Ige and what he did tonight and the way that he performed, and you could win fighter of the night from me, even if you didn't win your match. By example, I would put Angela Hill as number 2. I thought she had the second best performance of the night because it's not just about outdoing your opponent. It's coming out there with a better version of you or the best version of you that we have ever seen. Something along these lines is what would qualify you in this category. When I look at Ige tonight, okay, I've watched some of Ige's fight. Man, that guy's not really on my radar. I've seen some of his fights. This guy, you're telling me he's the number 15 guy in the world? Who the hell are the other 14? You got to be joking. Barboza is flat scary. You have to understand that. Scary is not a word that you can use for every fighter. You go, well, they're cage fighters and they're trained martial artists and they got experience and they're in the UFC. You can say all of these things. It still doesn't fully equal scary. Scary does come with a curve. By example, take any heavyweight. Pick one off the top of your head. Okay, now think about Francis Ngannou. Do you see the difference? Do you now see who's scary as opposed to something else? Barboza's flat scary. He's got the best kicks in the business. Paul Felder is calling the fights. Paul Felder is one of the best kickboxers the sport has ever seen. Paul Felder concedes at least to the kicks of Barboza, and Felder's been in there with him for 2 full contests. The reason I bring this up is when Barboza drops from 155 to 145, which for me was an experiment. We've seen this work many times in reverse. A 45-pounder moves up to 55. A 70-pounder moves up to 85. We've seen it work in reverse, and we've seen very good things. We have not necessarily seen great things in higher weight dropping down to lower weight. We have. There's examples. The broader stroke, it works in reverse, works but going up. So when Barboza was coming down, it was a little bit confusing for me to start with because the guy was doing great at 155. He was doing great at 155. Chose to go down to 145. That's a level of discipline, much like what Jose Aldo went to. When you're already lean and ripped up and you're not carrying fat, very hard to do. You're talking about cannibalizing your own body, which is physically draining as that is. It's also a mental exercise. He's got to cut calories. He's got to get extra work. And so it's just interesting. Barboza looked great. Barboza had not missed a step. Barboza was hustling. He was scrambling. I think his speed went up, if you can even accept that. How do you be faster than Edson Barboza? I think today's Edson Barboza is faster than yesterday's Edson Barboza. He looked great. But Ige was in his face. Ige was swarming him. I still thought the technique of Barboza looked better. But there was a grittiness to Ige. He wasn't letting Barboza get off. And there's 2 ways to deal with a kicker. And there's only 2. You can either smother him. If you smother him, he just simply can't throw the kicks. Or if you aren't able to smother him and he does throw the kick, you make him pay for it. You don't just throw one down the middle. You swarm him with a combination. That's what Ige did. Every time Barboza kicked, it wasn't just one down the middle. It was bump, bump, bump. He would swarm him. He would run him backwards. He would make him think twice about throwing those kicks. Now, Barboza held up his end of the bargain. Barboza fought his ass off, but Ige still got the jump on him. I mean, Ige was a pressure fighter to the highest of levels. I do think that Angela Hill deserves some of that same praise. Angela Hill isn't the world's most talented mixed martial artist. She's just not. She was a stand-up fighter. She's a great stand-up fighter. She's a great fighter and a great, gritty competitor, but she's still learning mixed martial arts. Some of her ground game, some of those skills there. She was showing takedown defense tonight. It was through the roof. She was defending takedowns as well as Jose Aldo defends takedowns. Jose Aldo might be the best takedown defender I have ever seen. For a non-wrestler, Jose Aldo is the reverse of George St. Pierre. Neither one of them wrestled. St. Pierre can take anybody off their feet. Jose Aldo can stop anybody from taking him off his feet. That's what Angela Hill was doing tonight. And she was finding combinations. I thought Angela Hill fought out of her gloves tonight, and I don't disagree with the decision. I think Claudia beat her, fair and square. But those were the performances that I would come away and tell you, if you missed, you might want to go back and give it another look.